What's up? What's happening? Welcome here to Lacrosse Now. I'm your host, Travis Eldridge. We've got a great show, a couple of really good guests to get you ready for the PLL quarterfinals this weekend at Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, Massachusetts. We got Charlie Bertrand of the Redwoods helping this Redwoods team, hopefully in their case, make a late season push here in the playoffs. They play the Archers this week, so Bertrand previews that game, as well as talking about his career a little bit so far. Of course, started at Division II Merrimack, where he was a star player in a national championship team. Transferred to Virginia for that grad year, was really good for the Cavaliers, and now, of course, playing professionally for the Redwoods. So we talk about all that with Charlie Bertrand. We've also got PLL reporter Sarah Griffin joining us. She'll give us the nuts and bolts preview of all three quarterfinal matchups. We'll discuss who out of the teams that are playing this weekend maybe has the best chance to go on a run for a championship. The Whipsnakes, of course, the one team that are not playing this weekend. So we will get to all that with our guests coming up. But a couple of things I want to start with before we get to our guests. First, a couple of big news items in the sport this week. Of course, the first one, Fate of a Sport documentary debuting on ESPN+. Of course, documenting the creation of the PLL by the Rabel brothers. Had a chance to watch this the first day it came out on Monday. If you're listening to this, I'm taping it on Tuesday, so I watched it yesterday. A couple of things that stood out to me. I thought it was just overall a very interesting behind-the-scenes look at how they did this. I thought everything from listening in on some of the conversations they had with players when the MLL was still in existence. I remember being around the MLL championship game that year in Charleston, South Carolina, and legitimately all anybody was talking about was this league. We didn't know what the name of it was yet, but all anybody was talking about back in 2018 was this league and what was coming, if it was coming, how it was being put together. And listening into some of those conversations that were happening around that year and then afterward, leading into season one of the PLL, I thought was really interesting. And the stuff around the MLL-PLL merger and some of the behind-the-scenes looks there, I thought were really intriguing as well. If you watch it for anything, I feel like that's the portion, and it was put out on Twitter by the PLL, I think, a segment of that portion of the documentary. And I thought just how that all played out was very interesting to see some of the behind-the-scenes looks into that. And, I mean, I'd said it before, and I'll say it again. Now that having just one league, professional lacrosse is in the place that it was before, where you have the best players all competing in one league, in one spot, and it's a great product. And so what the PLL is doing now, I think, is it's putting the best players on display every single week, and I think we're seeing some of the best lacrosse that we've ever seen, because these athletes continue to get better and better, and you got more guys spending more time on the sport, which is something that we want to continue to see more of, and I hope the PLL will keep pushing it forward. So if worth a watch if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet. It's Fate of a Sport on ESPN+ now. It's also going to have some times that is going to air on ESPN, ESPN2, and I believe ABC leading up to the PLL championship coming up in a couple of weeks. So take a look at that. The other big news, not in the sport of lacrosse, but for a player that used to play the sport of lacrosse, is that Jared Bernhardt today, on Tuesday, it's been reported that he has made the cut. He has made the 53-man roster for the Atlanta Falcons, which is just unbelievable. I mean, look, yeah, is he going to play a ton? We don't know. Is he going to be on the roster for a few weeks and then end up on the practice squad? We don't know. But to make the initial 53-man roster out of training camp is unbelievable, because, like, think about this. It was a little over a year ago. He's playing Division I college lacrosse, had never stepped on the foot on a college football field. He goes to play Division II college football at Ferris State, but he doesn't play wide receiver. He plays quarterback. And, yeah, he was unbelievable in his run to a national championship for Ferris State. The run that they went on was just unmatched in terms of how dominant they were in that run. I mean, you look at the numbers that are on the screen here. If you're watching this on YouTube, 1,300 passing yards, 11 touchdowns. He ran for more than that, 1,400 rushing yards, to go along with 26 rushing touchdowns. I mean, it was unbelievable. But to go from D1 lacrosse star, the best guy in the country because he won the Tewaaraton Award, to then playing Division II football at the quarterback position, to now playing wide receiver at the NFL level and making a 53-man roster. I mean, look, to go from D1 lacrosse to D2 football is an impressive jump, and to dominate the way he did at the Division II level is impressive. It's more impressive to go from playing Division II football at one position to playing a completely different position in the NFL. You're talking about the most important sport in this country, football. Like, it, bar none. That's why the NFL ratings are what they are. College football is as big as it is. It is the most important sport in this country. More people pay attention to that sport than anything else. And Jared Bernhardt is making an NFL roster playing a position he's never played before this year. That's crazy. Like, to give you some perspective, I mean, look at Pat Spencer in basketball. And yes, he's made his way to the G League, which is impressive. He's now as part of the Golden State Warriors G League system. Awesome. He played professionally in Germany, had an opportunity there to play some minutes at the top level of basketball there. But he went to a Division I school at Northwestern and played essentially the position and a little bit of the role that he's going to play in the NBA. So at least he has a year playing Division I, doing what he's supposed to do at the next level. Jared Bernhardt dominated playing a completely different position that he's now making the NFL doing. That's crazy. I mean, like, the Eagles, it took a chance on a wide receiver, Devin Allen, out of Oregon. He's an Olympic hurdler. So obviously an incredible athlete, like we've seen from Bernhardt. I mean, anybody who knows and watched Jared Bernhardt play lacrosse knows how great of an athlete he was. So you take a great athlete and you put him on an NFL field. Well, Allen had played the wide receiver position at Oregon in college. So he's played at the highest level, has played this position, and he just got waived by the Eagles. Now, he may end up getting a chance at the practice squad for Philadelphia. That would be awesome, and it would be a great story. Still not as impressive of a story as Jared Bernhardt, who's making the team. We don't know how good Atlanta's going to be. Their quarterback situation's a bit of a question mark. It's certainly a rebuilding situation. But for Jared Bernhardt to make a 53-man roster after having never played wide receiver in his career, and now to do it at the NFL level, is nuts. Congratulations to him. Well-deserved, and I hope he continues to make it cut. I mean, the guy is a really hard worker. We saw the kind of athlete he is, and it's going to be really fun to see if he can make an impact on Sunday. So congratulations to Jared Bernhardt. So that closes the book on a couple of news items. Let's look ahead to these PLL quarterfinals this weekend. We start with Charlie Bertrand of the Redwoods as he gets ready to take on the Archers this weekend at Gillette. So we got the Redwoods midfielder Charlie Bertrand joining us now ahead of the quarterfinals this weekend at Gillette Stadium in the PLL. Charlie, just first off, like, for you, second season professionally in this league, what feels different this time around? Like, what did you learn from year one that you've been able to use into some success here in year two?
Yeah, I think obviously just coming in training camp, being comfortable with the team, it certainly makes a difference to kind of know the guys around the locker room and feel like you're taking on a little bit more responsibility. I think coming in after a year of box helped as well. So I think kind of bringing that environment into the outdoor game has been pretty fun for me.
I mean, you're playing here second season professionally with the best players in the world, and you're up for midfielder of the year. Like, how do you sum that up and what that means?
Yeah, it was certainly quite the honor. It's cool to see that for sure. It's certainly a big difference from last year. I feel like I was kind of flying under the radar a little bit, playing a role within my team, and it's been cool to take on a little bit of a bigger role this year and think I'm doing pretty well with it. So hopefully I can carry that into the playoffs. Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned your team, the Redwoods. Like, you're playing on a midfield with Miles Jones and Sergio Perkovic. Like, take yourself back 5 years ago. If you were to tell 5 years ago, Charlie, that this is the midfield you're playing on, what would Charlie be thinking about?
Yeah, there's no shot I would have believed that. I think it's pretty cool, especially when you look at the team that we got, and we certainly have some big names and a lot of people that had a lot of success through both college and professionally. So I think there's a lot of experience in their locker room, and it's cool to be a part of that.
So how have you kind of found your role in that group? Because you're right, like, you know, you got the big names in Miles and Sergio and Rob Pannell. Like, when you first were there last year, you got Kyle Harrison. Like, how did you kind of navigate finding your spot and your role on this roster?
Yeah, I think that's been super interesting for me because last year was definitely being more of an off-ball role. I thought I was doing a good job setting picks, trying to get other guys open and kind of be that inside guy. And this year, I think that when you play teams and you have guys like Miles and Jules and Perkovic as well, that are drawing a lot of attention to these defensive game plans. I think that gives me a little bit of space to operate, especially if the shorty's on me or whatever it may be, and they're not sliding. I think that I'm taking on a little bit more of that role of dodging this year.
If you go back to your career in college, obviously you had incredible success at Merrimack before you then transferred for that grad year at Virginia. What did that grad year at Virginia prove maybe to yourself? What did you feel like you maybe proved to the rest of the lacrosse world about what you were doing at Merrimack even before you jumped up to the D1 level?
I think for me, it was a whole different challenge. Just I know we talked a lot already about just playing different roles, but I certainly, the first time I experienced that was jumping from Merrimack to UVA, where I playing guys with Matt Moore and Connor Schellenberger that we wanted to dominate the ball, and I once again took on a little bit of that off-ball role, but also would take it to the cage whenever we needed that, and it did a lot for me coming from a great coaching staff at Merrimack that helped in practice every day, working off ball and working on different aspects of my game. So I was able to take that to UVA right away and see some success against this top D1 program versus where I was at Merrimack.
Like, if you take yourself back to Merrimack, did you need the year at Virginia to show, like, yourself or everybody else that you felt like you could play here professionally at this level, or did you know that already? Was your confidence there before?
I think it's hard to say because you don't really get to line yourself up against guys that often outside of a couple preseason scrimmages against Yale that we had at Merrimack where you could kind of see how you stack up against those guys. So I think for personally, it was huge just to gain some of that confidence and see the guys that you're playing against. But I think it should be well known that guys coming out of Division II and top Division III programs that have a lot of success are certainly able to carry that over to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, we've continued to see it. I mean, we used to see it before, even before the grad transfer year became such a big thing. Guys would make the jump to the pro game, and all of a sudden it's a guy. It's like, oh, wait, yeah, they're really good. So it continues to see the talent, but I think it's always interesting to talk to guys about when they figured out they could do that. With you at Merrimack, like, you leave and then they jump up to Division I. What's it like watching your alma mater now make that transition to now being a Division I school?
Yeah, it's pretty cool for sure. I certainly missed the D2 aspect and seeing them play in the playoffs and scrapping against teams like Lemoyne and guys that I was used to playing. But it's really cool to see that change now and being able to root for them against some of these teams that they hadn't had a chance to play before. So it's a little bit different for me because now the teams they're playing, I never really had a chance to play against at Merrimack with that shortened COVID season. But it's cool to watch them make that switch.
Off the field, I want to talk because I was looking at your profile that the PLL has, and one of your favorite foods listed is chicken riggies, which I think anybody that's has not spent any time in Central or Upstate New York probably is like, what on earth are you talking about? So tell people about the delight of chicken riggies, because I've got family that live outside of Utica, so I know what it's all about. You explain why they're one of your favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly feel bad for people that don't know what chicken riggies are. It's just a simple pasta dish with obviously chicken, rigatoni, and then like a type of vodka cream sauce. And they got cherry peppers in there to spice it up a bit.
So is that like a go-to pregame meal if you can get it?
Yeah, I'm always eating Italian food the night before a game if I can. So whenever I'm home or in the Syracuse area, I got to make sure I hit it.
All right. So, I mean, we've got to figure out somewhere in the north end of Boston for you for this weekend to get you some chicken riggies, because you guys are at Gillette Stadium this weekend for a matchup with the Archers. I know it was a close one the first time you guys played this year. If you break down what you guys need to do this weekend, what do you feel like you need to do in order to advance?
Yeah, I think it's more the same looking at the last couple of weeks and what we have to do coming into this. It's just worrying about ourselves, and if we play the game that we know we can, playing together, making the hustle plays, as you know, are so important in these playoff games that come down to 1 or 2 goal games. It's getting back on defense, not letting them get easy transition goals, picking up ground balls, and just playing together.
If I remember correctly, you won at least one national championship at Gillette, right?
I did, 2018, yeah.
So what's it like when you have an opportunity to go back there and play?
Yeah, so that was the last time I'm playing there, so it'll certainly bring back some good memories coming in, hopefully some good juju.
Yeah, I mean, you had some good juju the last time you were there. What's your favorite memory from that championship run in 2018? Because I mean, if people don't know, Merrimack at like Gillette's like hometown there for you guys. So what's your favorite memory of that year?
Yeah, we certainly had a great turnout there for all the home fans and a lot of people coming out. I think we came off to a pretty hot start. We went in the locker room, and I think it was 10-1 at half. And Coach Morgan stayed the course and was kind of telling us what we needed to do better, like very serious demeanor. And he called out Blake Boudreau for a mistake he made, but he actually called the timeout, and Blake didn't score off of a face-off. So Blake kind of chirped Coach back, and everyone started laughing a little bit. Loosened up the atmosphere in the locker room going back into the second half, knowing that we're in a really good spot.
I mean, how good of like a quick bus ride was that back to campus afterward?
Yeah, that was a great part too. I mean, everyone, we spent quite a bit of time in the parking lot after with everyone there, but then we had a good crew that all came back to campus with us to celebrate with all our families.
Well, we hope maybe you're celebrating here this weekend after another big win at Gillette Stadium. Charlie, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on a great year so far, and good luck this weekend. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate it.
Great to catch up with Charlie, and very cool for him. I didn't realize this will be the first time he's playing back at Gillette Stadium since he won a national championship there. So maybe he is hoping there's some good juju at Gillette for him and the Redwoods this weekend. Speaking of Redwoods Archers this weekend, that, of course, one of the 3 quarterfinals, triple header on Saturday afternoon at Gillette Stadium here on Labor Day weekend. In order to get ready for that, had a chance to catch up with PLL reporter Sarah Griffin to preview all 3 quarterfinals. Take a listen. So let's look ahead to these PLL quarterfinals at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. We've got PLL reporter Sarah Griffin joining us now to preview them. Sarah, let's start with, I think, the game that I find the most intriguing, which is Archers and Redwoods, something that I know you're working on, a story about Rob Pannell on the season he's had. But let's start big picture with this matchup. The Archers at times look like they're the most talented team in the league, but the Redwoods have as much talent and star power as anybody. How do you see this playing out?
You know, it's interesting with this game because I feel like the Redwoods got off to such a slow, just uncharacteristic start for them. But that Archers loss, that 1-goal loss they had to them right before the All-Star break really was kind of the turning point for them. Because, yeah, it was a 1-goal loss, but it seemed like things were starting to come together more for them. And I remember in the post-game, it was Rob Pannell actually said, like, he had a 6-point night that night. You know, he was really fighting until the very end there to try and will his team to that win. But he did say, like, every game from here on out is a playoff game. And I feel like coming into the All-Star break, we just saw a completely different team, like, especially offensively. Like, a Redwoods offense, we don't really, like, you know, you have all these stars on this team, but they've been sharing the ball, been having more fun. It's just like a very different version of them. And it feels like they've really started to click since that one loss.
Yeah, and you know what? I feel like with them, too, that loss, a 10-9 game, like, I feel like that's the type of game that against the Archers they could win. You rely on the defense. I think Jack Kelly in that game had stopped 57% of the shots that he saw. Like, it feels like maybe that's the way they have to win, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I remember that was Jack Kelly's, like, first start after they benched Troutner. So he was still probably trying to find his way there. And I thought that was a solid first start. And then you also had, that was TD Erlin's first game where he looked a lot more like himself. I mean, granted, Ignacio hasn't had probably the season he's wanted to, but also I think that was a much needed confidence boost for TD right there. And just that alone, because this Archers offense, like you mentioned, that offense, when they're clicking, like they're, I think, the most dangerous team in the league. Like when you have all those guys firing from all cylinders, I really don't know how you stop them.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing that's so head-scratching about the Archers. Like, there's a reason that they have the seed that they do, and that, like, at times they look like the best team in the league is because when that offense clicks, it works, but it doesn't click all the time. So I don't know. Me as a fan who's been a fan of the Archers since the beginning of this league with the pieces that they've had since the very first season of the PLL, I'm waiting for it to come together for, like, 3 straight games. I just don't know if it's going to happen.
I know. I feel like with them, something I've noticed is when they get off the slow starts and they kind of have to work their way back up, it's almost always like too little too late in those cases. But when they come out firing just from like the first quarter, no one can catch up to them. I mean, we saw it in that Cannons game when they dropped 20 on them.
Yeah, no, so maybe you're right. Maybe it is the first quarter because I think when they do get off the slow starts, you're right. They end up, it's the fourth quarter. They'll score 3 in a row and make it a 1 or 2 goal game, but they never have quite enough to finish it. It's like the same story that plays out every time. So maybe the fast start will be key to this. We talked a little bit about Rob Pannell. I know you're working on a story this week about him. And as somebody who's watched him play since he was in the MLL and his MVP year in Major League Lacrosse, which I thought was maybe the best year of his career, what has he been doing this year that's maybe a little bit different? And especially I feel like down the second half of the season, he has really emerged.
Yeah, I feel like he's really revolutionized his game, which is kind of weird to see after like seeing someone that's already this far in his career. But he is someone that everyone thought of like, oh, like he's an attack, like this goal scoring attackman, owns goal line extended. Like he's someone you have to keep your eye on the whole time. But now it's like defenses don't know what to do with him because, like you said, especially since the second half of the season, he's kind of taken on that quarterback role of this Redwoods offense. Like you don't know if you're getting Rob Pannell, the goal scorer, Rob Pannell, the feeder. Like he can put 5 points up and it could be like 4 goals and 1 assist or 4 assists and 1 goal. Like you don't know what you're getting from him. And I think that also opens opportunities up for guys like Ryder Garnsey, who's such a creative shooter. Now he's seeing more opportunities on net than he did the first half of the season. And then also like Charlie Bertrand kind of revitalized that Redwoods midfield, having a breakout season. So you're not just looking at guys like Miles and Perk.
Yeah, it's a deep offense, and I think like the Archers, like when it clicks, it can be really dangerous. So that makes this quarterfinal really intriguing. The other one, I can't find a way to pick Water Dogs Atlas. Like how do you see it? Because I think it's a coin flip when you've seen at different points of the year, maybe Atlas the beginning and then Water Dogs in the middle to the back half were maybe 2 of the hottest teams in the league, and it's kind of like depending on what team you get depends on how this thing's going to go.
Oh, absolutely. I like rewatched the Water Dogs Atlas game trying to because I've been trying to make my pick for this game. I'm like, I really have no idea. And like that overtime loss that the Atlas had against the Water Dogs, I don't even think it was so much as they got outplayed by the Water Dogs in those late few minutes. It was more so just like silly little mistakes by the Atlas that kind of just let the game slip away. And they're just so evenly matched up in so many ways. But then you also have like Trevor Baptiste at the faceoff stripe. Like that's one extra, like he can put the team on his back and will them to a win. But then also Kieran McCardle could do the same thing for the Water Dogs. Like he handed the Whip Snakes the one loss they had all season.
Yeah, and I mean, that game that was, I believe it was out in Denver, that 16-15 game, that was one of the most exciting of the entire year so far. Like back and forth.
Absolutely.
It was very rarely with not within 1 or 2 goals. Like there was very little separation. I do think the one thing that concerns me about the Atlas maybe at this stage is, are they too young? Because that offense is a bunch of young guys. They've been playing since their college seasons, or in Jeff Teet's case, since the NLL season. That's my only hesitation about them is did they peak a little too early, and did they have enough in the tank to make a run?
See, I think that's what's such an interesting storyline with the Atlas this year is because last year, like everyone was looking at them, oh, okay, like they're kind of in this rebuild. They're this younger looking team. And then all of a sudden coming into this year, they're like top title contenders. But then you still do, like you mentioned, like you have Jeff Teet and Chris Gray headlining that attack group. But then on the flip side, like the Water Dogs, Michael Sowers has never played in a playoff game. You know, you got these younger guys on that side too. I think it's 2 like very young cores, but then they both have these veterans like Eric Law and Kieran McCardle, or then like Water Dogs with like Zach Currier in the midfield. Like there's just so much versatility on both these teams. I really have no idea how to make this pick.
I won't make you make a pick because I don't know if I can make a pick. It's like flipping a coin. I will say probably 2 teams that are set up for success, like for years to come, if they can keep these rosters together. They're really fun. The other game is Chrome Chaos. Can the Chaos figure this out despite the fact they haven't won 2 games in a row all year? Like we saw it happen last year, so can they do it again?
It's like so hard to say, oh no, the Chaos can't do it, because everyone knows like playoff Chaos team, they're not a team you want to bet against. Like Andy Towers, I would never say like they can't get it done. But also this Chrome team, I feel like they're kind of similar to the Water Dogs. They're very pesky in that they play such a good full 48 minutes that the game's not over until that very last second. So I feel like if the Chaos even slip up a little bit, you know, there's a lot they need to clean up all season. They need to be like near perfect, I think, to outplay this Chrome team for the full game.
Yeah, and I do think the Blaze Reardon factor last year was so huge, like how great he was. And like, unless he all of a sudden flips a switch and becomes like last year's playoff Blaze and goal, I think that really is a difference maker, because the offense, it feels like it's taken, like even the regular season matchup, a 13-9 loss for them. It just feels like the offense has taken a while for them to figure this out in the field game with all those Canadian and indoor pieces.
I know, it's so weird because individually there's so much talent on that offense, and we know like chemistry's not an issue in this group. Like they're playing with each other practically year round for the most part. But yeah, it's just something about they haven't been able to find their footing. And then, like you mentioned with Blaze, he's not playing at that same level he was last season, which is not to say he's not playing great, because he's still Blaze Reardon, still like a top goaltender of the year contender. But he is very much, I think, the heart of that Chaos team. So if you're not helping him out in front with like, because they are like, Chaos is the lowest scoring team in the league. They have been all season. Then there's only so much you can do as a goaltender if you're not having like perfect games every single week.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to be in the MVP conversation as a goalie, and that's how good Blaze was last year. So even like to do that again is asking a ton of your goalie. So that's just to preface that conversation. Obviously, the Whipsnakes are a contender because they just are always there, and they're the team that gets the bye this week. But of these other 6 teams that are playing, like who do you feel the best about going on a run? And like if you weren't going to pick the Whipsnakes, who do you feel best about possibly picking for a championship contender out of this group?
Ooh, for a championship contender, honestly, I'm going to go with the Water Dogs.
Okay. Why?
I think, kind of like I mentioned with the Chrome, I think the Water Dogs are a very pesky team that they get under team skins. You know, they play that full 48 minutes, but also they do so many like little things right, I feel like, that end up making a difference in the end. You know, it adds up quickly, and then you do have such a versatile roster. Their attack, I really feel like, is a very pick your poison type deal, because it's like, okay, Kieran McArdle he's the quarterback here, but then you have Michael Sowers, who's lethal from X, you know, he can also set you up for anything. And then Ryan Brown's obviously been banged up for a bit of the season, but he's still one of, if not the best shooter in the game. Like Zach Courier, 2-way player. Like there's just so much working well for this Water Dogs team that could like help them in those playoff situations. I'm going, if it's not the Whipsnakes, that's my team.
All right. We talked to Michael Sowers a couple weeks ago, and I think like because the injury last year, and I just feel like people haven't recognized that dude is still like one of the best lacrosse players and athletes that's on the field every week. And so every time you get a chance to watch him play, it's always a treat. He's just unbelievable. Oh
yeah, I'm super excited to see him and Jeff Teague get to play against one another in the playoffs, just to see kind of that like 2 top college draft picks up against each other and how they've panned out. Because both of them have, like you said, Sowers didn't really have much of a season last year because of injury, but like this year he's just been lighting it up at the same level.
Yeah, that dude is just unbelievable. He was unbelievable at Princeton, had a good year at Duke, and he just keeps running with it. So before we let you go, I know you got triple header action at Gillette. Like, how are you spending quarterfinals Saturday this week?
I'll be at Gillette all Saturday.
So you're just going to be locked in, like just taking every game in and out?
Oh, yeah. I'm hyped.
Should be an awesome Saturday down at Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, Massachusetts. PLL quarterfinals. Sarah Griffin will be there. Sarah, we appreciate the time. Thanks, and enjoy. It should be a lot of fun.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited.
Big thanks to Sarah for joining us, and hopefully she enjoys a great quarterfinal weekend down at Gillette Stadium. The weather on Saturday, I believe, looks perfect. So maybe a little hot, but should be a terrific afternoon at Gillette for the triple header of quarterfinal action. We'll see who moves on to the semifinals. Some really intriguing games, including that. I mean, Redwoods Archers, I think, could go either way, and Water Dogs Atlas, as we just spoke about. I mean, good luck trying to pick that one. So if you're doing the PLL Pick'em challenge, flip a coin maybe? I don't know. I will be very interested to see how both those games go. And then who knows with the chaos? I mean, we saw it happen last year. Maybe they can get Lightning to strike twice here, and they can make another run. So be very interested to watch the PLL quarterfinals. We'll be locked in, and we'll break down what happens next week right here on Lacrosse. Now should have some good guests as well. But for now, that's all the time we have for this week. I'm Travis Eldridge. We'll see you next time.